You're listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN. Once again, here's your hosts, Gary Kelley and Brad Avergon.
Hi, this is Gary Kelley. I'm with RE/MAX Executive Realty, and I am speaking with the dapper Brad Avergon of Envision Mortgage. And in the first half, we were talking about bridge loans, and Brad said this is a portfolio product. And that's a term that gets thrown around sometimes with condos, etc., where people are saying, "Oh, you got to get a portfolio loan." What is a portfolio product or a portfolio loan? And I want you to go back to how difficult is it to get a home equity line?
That's a great question, Gary. So a portfolio loan is simply this. It is the type of a loan that the bank is going to retain, they're going to keep, and they're going to service themselves. You hear terms like secondary market, a loan being sold, or the servicing being sold and transferred to somebody else. In the case of an equity line, this is something that the bank is going to keep. There are other types of, you had mentioned condos and things like that. Sometimes, the way I describe it to my clients is this. In order to get a loan with typically the best pricing, it has to be a secondary, marketable, warrantable loan so that it can be backed with mortgage-backed securities on Wall Street. That's what makes that loan a liquid asset for the bank.
Whoa. Mortgage-backed securities, that's what got us in trouble.
Well, it did get us in trouble, Gary. It did get us in trouble when mortgage-backed securities were when there was no income verification.
When it was the Wild Wild West?
When it was the Wild Wild West. No income, no asset, no tell, which was insanity. It was absolutely, and what's worse is the Moody's rating system was rating them like A paper, which was a mistake. It was just an accident waiting to happen that should have never happened. But that's a different time. Now, loan officers are required, like myself, to be licensed. I have 34 years experience in the business. And as you had referenced earlier, it's not quite as easy to get a mortgage as it was during the no income, no asset, no employment days. You have to verify your employment. You have to verify your assets. You have to verify your credit history. All of these things are looked at a lot more closely than they were back then. So we don't anticipate a mortgage meltdown anytime soon, based on what we look at. We're pretty diligent in what we do now.
We're in a bubble, aren't we? Isn't the bubble about to burst?
And the bubble, the magic bubble. I think if you look at a lot of the data from back at that time, I think you're going to find significant differences in both the lending institutions and the market that we find ourselves in. You had, back as far as the lending institutions go, the scrutiny was put to them. They were, again, loan officers have to be licensed. Auditing happens all the time on loans. So every 10th loan is reviewed post-closing to make sure it was done correctly. There is so much more that goes into underwriting a file and post-closing auditing than ever went in before. So from an institutional standpoint, I don't think that's a problem. Plus, after that, if you remember, they started doing what's called institutional testing, meaning if a certain amount of loans defaulted, was that particular bank now able to weather that storm, to absorb that loan? And if not, then they've got a problem and they have to stop lending, and all sorts of other things come into play. So that's done. So we learned a lot from that experience across the board. The other thing is the market is different right now. There is so few homes, specifically even in our area, but there are so few homes on the market that it is, they get gobbled up. Are these bubbles bursting? I just don't see it happening. Could we see on the super top end, the $1 million plus, a little bit slower pricing increases? Absolutely. I absolutely see this. I don't think this is going to be a panacea that everything is going to keep going through the roof. But I think houses that are priced right, that middle marketplace from anywhere from 500 up to $1 million, I think that's going to maintain certainly maintain, if not increase, slightly year over year in this coming year.
So if I'm trying to decide what to do, I've got many options. Um, if I have if I had the foresight, luck, whatever, to acquire another home, okay, I have that I can play with. And there's a couple of different ways, obviously, you can play with that. If it comes down to I can hit my 401k and take money out of that, or I can get an equity line without going into specifics because you don't have specifics to go into. What would be your reaction to someone that is faced with that just generically?
So generically, I think that those are some really good options. I would put them in this order. I think the equity line is the best play, so to speak, because again, it has no point. Even if you don't end up moving, it turns a solid asset into a liquid asset. Think of it like suit coats on a pocket. If you've got your cash and your savings, your checking and savings in one pocket, and you've got your stocks and bonds in another pocket, and then you've got that equity in your home in the third pocket, that pocket is sewn closed for the most part, unless you put an equity line on it. And if you put an equity line on it, again, you don't have to use it. You should lock that equity line in the drawer and use it only if you need to. It's not for vacations. It's not for going out and heading off to Foxwoods. It is for, I need it because I need to, again, use the equity in my home to purchase another property, or there's an emergency that I need to tap. The nice thing about the equity line is, A, it has no points, no closing costs. The prepayment penalty is only a few $100s, typically less than $1,000. So if you use it to transition into another property, when you pay it off early, and if you get it this year and you move in 6 months, you will have that early payoff, that few $100s. It's cheap money. It's very inexpensive, and it disappears when you're done. And I think that's the number one. That's the best way to go. The second best way is also to use, if you need to, your 401k. But I want to preface that by saying not a withdrawal on your 401k, not a withdrawal, a loan against your 401k. If you are not of retirement age and you take a withdrawal on your 401k, you're going to get an IRS penalty of 10%, plus you're going to be taxed on it as income. It's not great. If you're over 59, you're still going to have it taxed on income. But if you do a loan, which most 401ks will allow you to withdraw up to 50% of the vested amount in your 401k, up to $50,000. So you can only typically get up to $50,000, and you can borrow it from yourself. And so you're paying yourself that interest back during that time. So you're really becoming your own bank, so to speak, for that $50,000. And if $50,000 is enough to do the trick, that's a great way to go as a second option. And then the third option would be the bridge loan if you needed to use that.
So, Brad, all of a sudden you're sounding like a financial guy. You're making my head explode and all that stuff. Ugh. So I'm not going to do any of that. I'm going to go sell my home, and I'm going to move into an apartment for a while. I actually don't think that that's a horrible idea. Some people say, oh, that's awful. I don't want to do that. And I do think that people need to take the time to make sure that the apartment that they're selecting is set up in a way that's suitable for their living style. I've got a client that is building a home, and they're in a rental property today, and I'm told regularly that the smell of pot in the place is so bad that they just absolutely hate it. Well, to some clients, they might find that a good thing. I think other places, it's an opportunity for you to try an area without making that big investment. And I think that that's a huge advantage. And it becomes, rather than being awful, it's an adventure.
I think you're right, Gary. And I think it requires a change of mindset. People have owned their homes so long, and that becomes their nest. And when they let go of one nest, they want to know what nest they're going to next, right? They feel safe in their homes, especially in light of the craziness that we've had over the last couple of years with COVID and such. People's homes have become their sanctuaries, and or their prisons, depending on how you look at it. But I think you're absolutely right. I think the idea of taking the time rather than necessarily jumping from one situation into the next, taking the time to say, okay, let's end this chapter. Let's go to get some temporary housing, clear our heads a little bit, and think about what do I want the next chapter to look like? Where do I want to be? And perhaps rent in that area. Sometimes areas look a lot nicer on their face than once you get in there and you're like, you know what? I thought this was going to be great, but I really don't like this area so much. Maybe I want to move somewhere else. Maybe I want to move a little further away. Maybe I want to move to another, south or whatever. But I think having that extra time to go through the process, separate from going through the process of selling your home, which has its own set of mental gyrations that you got to go through. I think that's helpful. So I agree.
Another benefit that I see all the time is that people, when they sell their house, they have to go through the mental anguish of downsizing. They have to get rid of stuff. They have to throw it away. They have to give it to their kids. They have to donate it, whatever they're going to do. And that positions them well to go into temporary housing, and you're able to enjoy things more. Brad, we're running out of time, and it's time for today to get paid again. How does someone reach you if they want to talk more about this?
The best way to reach me, Gary, is via my cell phone, which is 978-375-5531, or via my email, which is bavergon, that's BAVERGON, @envisionbank.com. And Gary, how do they reach you?
I am Gary Kelley, and I am at 508-733-6005 or Gary@movewithgary.com. Brad, thank you very much for participating today. I look forward to getting together with you again and continuing the conversation.
Sounds great, Gary. Be well.
You've been listening to All Things Real Estate on Full Service Radio, 830 WCRN.